A Soldier's Tale.
1918 was a hard year for the entirety of the world. Late that year, the First Great War had ended, leaving multiple countries in disarray. Countries like Germany were struggling to recuperate from the repercussions of war. Russia had begun their own revolution and was going through a power struggle, and countries like France were attempting to reclaim their lost land. This was also the end of great empires spanning across multiple continents. But along with all this pain and bloodshed, there were stories to be told about people who did not participate in the war as well. Igor Stravinsky, in the years prior, was coming off the massive success of his 3 previous ballets, Petrushka, The Firebird, and The Rite of Spring. He had been getting royalties for these ballets for years from the Ballet Russe, and had found a decent living as a composer. However, when the Great War ended, Stravinsky was stranded in France, unable to return home to Russia due to the upending of society there, and without his stream of income from the Ballet Russe. Coming out of these dark times, Stravinsky wanted to write a piece that could help him financially, but also help people's minds, including his own feelings of post-war. So in France, he met Swiss writer Charles Remus, and together they devised a brilliant plan, or so they thought. Stravinsky thought to himself, how can I make money if large theaters are being shut down and big performances are rare? Well, he and Remus decided to write a traveling theater piece composed of 7 instrumentalists, 3 actors, and 1 dancer. Because he thought, that traveling to small villages with a performing ensemble would let him earn money to get by until things stabilized in Russia. This was the beginning of A Soldier's Tale. At its core, A Soldier's Tale can be considered a story put to song. Remus was the librettist and Stravinsky the composer. There are 3 actors playing characters: the devil, the soldier, and the narrator. There is also a dancer, and the instrumental accompanists consisting of a clarinet, bassoon, trumpet, trombone, percussionist, violin, and string bass. The music was completely departed from what Stravinsky was known for at the time, but it still was immediately identifiable as Stravinsky's music. He was inspired by the newcomer of American jazz for this piece, along with ragtime, march pasodoble, waltz, tango, and even klezmer. This can be heard throughout the piece to support a variety of sections. For example, when the young princess in Act 2 is brought out of her sickness by the soldier, she dances to 3 different tunes: ragtime, waltz, and tango. This is then followed by a chorale with the devil. However, while this piece is heavily influenced by other writing styles, it is still heavily Stravinsky. His thrumming rhythms and melodies are still there, and there is so many constant time signature changes that, unlike most chamber pieces, this one is required to have a conductor. While listening to this piece, I found it very evocative of The Rite of Spring, while still being completely different. Stravinsky was clear when writing this that it was to be a dark comedy. Even in his instrumentation choices, it creates a feeling of dryness and eeriness, mixing the dark comedic tone of the piece into this twisted version of reality that the devil so wishes. He wrote this to simultaneously remind people of the war that just ended, but also to bring laughs and smiles to people's faces throughout it. I will now give a brief summary of the plot, but I encourage my viewers to go listen to this piece in its entirety, as it is both a musical spectacle and a good story. Joseph Duprat is a soldier walking towards his hometown exhausted from a battle on a 15-day leave. He meets the devil, although he doesn't know it yet. After a brief conversation, Joseph exchanges his fiddle for the devil's book of finances. The devil also offers him a stay in his home, to which Joseph obliges. He thinks he spends 3 days there, given the best food, but when he returns home, he realizes that it has actually been 3 years, and everybody considers him a ghost. Even his fiancée and his own mother run away from him. The devil eventually reminds Joseph of the book's power, and Joseph uses the book to gain untold wealth. After a long period of time of being extremely rich, Joseph realizes that money means nothing to him, and he attempts to buy his fiddle back from the devil, only to find out that it no longer plays a sound. In a fit of rage, he tears open the book, and that is the end of part 1. In part 2, Joseph leaves his home with none of his objects and goes to an inn where he learns that the king's daughter is sick, and whoever awakens her will wed her. Joseph finds this an opportunity, but when he arrives at the palace, he is once again confronted by the devil. The narrator reminds Joseph that the devil still controls him because he has the devil's money. So, as any sane person would do, he decides to gamble with the devil in a game of cards, losing all his money to the devil, and then he's free. He takes his fiddle and plays it again. This awakens the princess. The devil returns, and Joseph uses his fiddle to fight the devil, eventually ending in the devil collapsing from dancing. The princess and Joseph get married. However, the devil says that if either of them leave the palace, they will once again be in the hands of the devil. Joseph thinks about the idea of having his mother and his wife together, so he crosses the boundary to find his mother and bring her back. He turns around and realizes that his princess is now gone. The devil smiles, and the story ends. This piece was premiered on September 28, 1918 in Lausanne, Switzerland, and was conducted by Ernest Anzermet. The first performance was a huge success, but unfortunately for Stravinsky and Ramus, the influenza epidemic hit Europe almost immediately after. After the first performance was completed, the traveling theater was shut down due to the flu, and Stravinsky was once again stranded without a good source of income for a time. It was after this piece that he returned to small works, and his next large ensemble piece was his octet, in which he very publicly stated that he will be moving to a neoclassicist style of writing. The Soldier's Tale was not performed publicly for a second time until 1924, when it was played in Paris. Stravinsky wrote this piece during a difficult time period for everyone. He tried to bring people out of the dark by interweaving comedy with the dark. In certain ways, he succeeded. Throughout the listening of this piece, you laugh and smile at things that most would consider dark jokes, and that is what he was trying to achieve, in his orchestration and in Ramus's writing. Stravinsky wrote a wonderful piece for all to enjoy to this day that unfortunately for him was shut down very quickly. However, it was revived later and shown the true glory of what it is today.